So diving into Salesforce dashboards, I will be walking through in large detail in this wiki that we have out there. So I'll go ahead and share that out via chat right now too. And so Salesforce dashboards are something that we rolled out a while ago. And so some of you might have been with us for many years. I think the first one was in early 2020. And then we did some revamping to those in 2021. And this is another stage where we're kind of revamping things again. So for some, this might be, you might already have some familiarity, but others, it might be completely new, and that's just fine. Absolutely what this session is for. So as I mentioned, like any Salesforce or Marketing Cloud users, this is relevant to, and we did invite all UCCS Marketing Cloud and Salesforce users to this session. But I also want to call out, while not invited, we want to kick it off with you all, actual users, but there's definitely broader application around this data because it is how our constituents are engaging with all of those emails that we're sending out. And so you might be thinking of either other folks in your shop or leadership, where you want to paint a picture of how you're engaging with your constituents. So do keep in mind how valuable this data can be, not only for you, but for others within CU. But the big red one on there, and why we're having this session right now, is because or in light of that recent business unit and email preference optimization project that took place, where I guess I'll just say from a high level, some of you might have lost your data. You didn't lose it. It might not feel like it's at your fingertips in Marketing Cloud like it used to be. But that data, and when we made that transition, we said it just like, you're not losing it. It's not in Marketing Cloud perhaps anymore, but it's never going to go away from Salesforce. And so this is really rounding out that kind of move that we did a couple months ago, so that you all can see that you still have access to your data if you are in a case where you were moved away from your previous business unit. But all that is not to say it's not relevant to everybody. So, of course, we have today's session. We'll make the recording available, and then I've shared out that wiki and we'll continue to. So whether today you feel like you know exactly what we're talking about and you're able to adopt it and roll with it tomorrow, or it just ends up being a bit of an awareness, this would be a great resource for you to come back to later on. So dashboards within Salesforce provide a great visual representation of data, so it can make having conversations about data and facts a lot easier than, oh, I heard this one case, or what you can often get is a squeaky wheel, where you start having a narrative where you're honing in on one part of the population, where another important part of that picture, while that is important, it could be this representation of the larger population, that they might not be squeaky wheels, but we are getting data on how they're engaging with your communications that could be valuable for you to interpret and change or hone in on what you're doing. The other really great thing about these dashboards is that it's really close to real time. I think it's actually every 15 minutes, but whenever you hit send on an email within Marketing Cloud, that integration, or at least within 15 minutes, if not sooner, is going to send that data back to Salesforce. And so as your engagement increases, right, your open rate's the lowest, right, when you send it, and slowly increases and increases, you see that reflected in Marketing Cloud. You would see that exact same behavior reflected in Salesforce as well. In many cases, this can help individuals avoid manual work. I have a couple of use cases of this that I've heard of, people like popping into Marketing Cloud, looking at their tracking data after every send, and then going into a spreadsheet and manually typing in, here's my open rate, here is my click rate, things like that. Doesn't need to be a manual process, doesn't have to be done immediately after the send. There could be a lot of efficiency in a process such as that, but many more examples about not having that manual work. Of course, tracking progress. So this is a big one for those folks who might have moved out of a business unit that, as lovely or as much as you need to check, did an email go out the door yesterday? Did folks get it? You can really start looking at a more broad communications, like how has this audience behaved over time? I'm not just looking at that most recent send. Did it get in their inbox? How are our communications changing, or how could we change our communications to evolve in the same way that our audience is? So some of that historical perspective can be really valuable. And so all of these things, when you're not doing a bunch of manual work, therefore getting a lot of efficiency and having a lot of data presented to you in real time, it can allow you to pivot to being a lot more strategic, thinking about the broader picture and what electronic communications mean, versus just thinking about e-com as a tool that sends out a message right when you need it. Trying to get out of that emergency space if we can. I will look for some thumbs up. I'm recognizing some names on the call. Since we did roll these out back in 2020 or 2021, can I get some thumbs up if this is something you're already familiar with? And no shame if we get no thumbs up. And Kayla, if you don't mind, can you just give a little bit on how you've used these historically and probably intend to moving forward?
Sure. So the way I use them is, like you mentioned, seeing the bigger picture of engagement by, groups of audiences, by the type of email I'm sending, by subject lines, just being able to see all of that in one space visually. And I'm a visual learner and visual thinker, I guess. So being able to see all of that in one place helps me strategize, what has been effective, what has not been effective, what has been effective, and what are some tips and tricks I should kind of write down for myself to use moving forward so that I continue having a strong strategy, or maybe something didn't work. And just across all of the units on campus, how things are going with communicating with our constituents.
Very good point. There's not just lessons to be learned about your own population and your own audience and your own communication. That's a great place to start, but there's also opportunity for that broad perspective, learning from each other. And of course, from Kayla and Eric's perspective, looking more broadly across the entire campus. So I do want to preface this. I know we get folks sometimes disappointed, but I'm hoping not the case, where they're like, oh, cool, these dashboards are going to be able to help me address questions like, when should I send my next email and what should the subject line be? So it's not going to do that directly. It's not going to provide you with, here's your next subject line, send at Wednesday at 11 a.m. However, it is going to provide you with an opportunity to view this very quantifiable data in an easy to understand way. And so with that very key piece, that interpretation that you and your team might do, maybe just yourself as a sender, but more broadly, or asking for advice from Kayla and others. How do we interpret this information? What does it mean? And only with that, and used in combination with a lot of other either metrics or your measure of success, can really get you into next steps. So again, the idea, like, what should my next subject line be? And I'm not going to say that, but you might be able to interpret this population responded much better to a subject line that had a call to action in it, versus the one that said ecom newsletter, June 2023. And so that's telling me I should probably continue with subject lines that have a call to action to them. So again, very useful information, even though it's not telling me exactly what my next subject line should be. There's also that room for error, just because you tried something and it completely flopped. That is a great lesson learned. Don't do it again, but that's not to be embarrassed about or thought of as a fail. I applaud you for trying. Keep doing that. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at this actually in Salesforce. So if you are not already logged in, please go ahead and do so. I will go ahead and share out our login link. We do have login to Salesforce here, and it is single sign-on. So you'll need to select your campus, but should be pretty easy to get into otherwise. And once you are in, you will be taken to our Salesforce homepage. And we have some dashboards that look at email performance across the entire org here. So the same concept of Salesforce dashboard. So you'll see me using the same terminology and the same sort of pieces that make up these different dashboards. But in today's session, we'll be focusing on what is currently labeled as these business unit dashboards on the right-hand side. And so the reason we'll be looking at these dashboards is because the one on the main homepage is looking at all emails ever sent, which you didn't know, that's like 40,000. So that's like somebody hitting send 40,000 times in this environment since like late 2019. So a lot of activity going on here, but too daunting to look at. We probably want to look at your communications or your unit's communication. So that's where these dashboards on the right-hand side will provide value. So I will go ahead and open up this UCCS dashboard under the first set labeled "How are my emails performing?" And then we'll also dive into the UCCS one under the second set of dashboards of "When are my emails performing?" I think I have this one open already. So when you open up these dashboards, you will again be seeing a ton of data. And in order to get that down further, we're leveraging these filters up here at the top, which are all values that I am able to add. I'm the only one with access to that. However, and part of this session at the end is going to be if you guys have any edits, recommendations, want to be able to slice this data or filter this data in a different way, we are open to those requests. But we took our best shot at it. I'm trying to fulfill all the needs right now. So hopefully we were able to do that for most. I don't know why this is still spinning, but we'll see. But I guess this is a really good example. The data that's being presented right here, it's a lot. It's being filtered by many things, and it's then being presented in these visual components. So there's a lot, so be patient with it. If you find yourself hitting refresh a lot, one, it's going to tell you you can't do that every minute. But similarly, if you're switching between filters again and again and again and again, like, why isn't it refreshing? It's running as fast as it can. It's having a really hard time keeping up. So if that's the case, just give it a minute, go do something else and come back to it and see if you're getting data to present itself. So historically, we used these business unit filters because we had a lot of business units. It was easy enough to filter and say, if I'm only looking at emails from the College of Business from yesterday to today, those are my emails. Well, in this optimization and email preference move that is really nice, our team's been very excited about it and has saved us some money as well. It might cause a wrench in this previous logic of just using a business unit, because before you might have just been in your own business unit and now you might be sharing business units. So in order to accommodate for that, what we've done is added an additional or third field here that I think people are going to start using more so. It really depends on you, like, and where you fall as a user and what group you fall into. But I think for the most part, people are going to start not using this business unit drop down at all, keeping it as all, and instead using this kind of from email public group marketing cloud folder group, which is a bit more granular. So Kayla, I know you are far more familiar with folks on the line. I'm hoping individuals will see something in this drop down. It is alphabetical that will kind of encompass their group. So while it does read College of Engineering, what's going on the back end is we're going to try to pull, and you can see when you hover this, give me all of these email sends that came from this eas@uccs.edu email address, as well as eintern@uccs.edu email addresses. So I was able to deduce that based off of pulling a bunch of previous email data. However, there's absolutely room for error. So this is where I say it might not be perfect, and you might be thinking, oh, that should be edited. That's as expected, a process that we will accommodate for. Nancy, I do not know off the top of my head. We can do a little investigating. I might have just missed it for human resources, but let's get it added as a group here. I'm going to take a note for these gaps. Anyone else? Well, I guess thumbs up. Is anybody finding their group? I'm finding data that does relate to them. Cool. So one thing that I do want to call out, and Kayla, you are a very good example of this. I pulled up an example of an email send from a business unit that did get deleted in this business unit and optimization project. So from her perspective, it's like, oh, I want to go see in Marketing Cloud on tracking. I want to go look at an email send from a year ago. Well, that business unit got deleted. It saved us some money. Thank you. Thank you. But you're not able to get that data here. However, just reiterating that this email send data does still exist in Salesforce, and that the send from back in 2022, we're still seeing here the business unit name might be updated, but we can still absolutely pull this in. And we are in your cases. I did pull in one in particular so that you can look at just e-com communications. So that's a great example of looking at a very specific group of communications, just e-com, not everything else that's going on, that other things that Kayla sends, for example. Kayla, is there anyone that we need to call out particularly who had deleted business units, who this is going to be particularly relevant for, or on this call?
I believe, well, I don't know that any, I mean, Eric and our marketing communications one has been deleted. I think that might be the only one on the call that had a deleted one. Others who have moved into a business unit that wasn't deleted but renamed, I guess. So that's where we're at in this group.
That's good. So yes, those groups where things were renamed, very much think you're gonna having this set to all and looking at your particular group. If it's not already added, Nancy, we will get on yours as soon as possible for human resources. And reiterating, I guess, with Kayla's example that you're able to see, which I did list out on the bottom here, so slightly not alphabetical, business units that we deleted. So you'll still be able to pull it. It's just, you're never going to have new information. The cutoff is going to be when we deleted it a couple weeks ago. So, or I guess we kicked you out of there a couple months ago. So that will be the end of it. So you can still use this. It's just not going to be helpful for you comparing old to new. start using these as well. So once you start playing with those filters, finding your group, that can be an initial barrier, or shouldn't even be a barrier, but just something you got to figure out. But then after that, this is something that you should be coming back to all the time and looking at your data and trying to, it can be a great thing to pull up when you're having a conversation with your communication team. Like, what are we doing next year? Well, what did we do last year? Let's take a look at it. And a lot of times I surprise myself, like, do we really send that many messages? We're just firing them off and have no idea how much work we're doing. So it should be an opportunity to celebrate your successes and all the work that you guys are doing as well. So these two very distinct dashboards, the one I have up right now being, how are my emails performing? I definitely rely on more heavily than the secondary one of when are my emails performing, but both very useful. So you'll get information on like how many emails have gone out and the total amount of population that it's hit, and comparing that over time. So this is another good space where maybe you'll see like, oh, this really jumped up. Wait, why would we have sent a communication to one really big population? What happened there? Was that a mistake? Was that a one-off? What's going on there? It can just open the door for good conversation. We dig into a lot of most popular, so that really celebrating successes. Hopefully if somebody received, or if your population received it well once, either by high open rates or high click rates, that should indicate a good method to move forward with. We look at similar information, but just broken down in different ways. So same, looking at open rates and click rates, but is it dependent on from name? So that could end up driving, should we be using a different from name? Do folks respond when it's Melanie Jones versus e-comet system? I also find lots of value in looking at these items over time, particularly by month. So even if you're not going back to 2020, looking at data that far back, just looking at the last 3 months or so can be really useful. Kayla, do you have any insight on this? And I'm particularly thinking about in how you interpret this data to maybe use for subject lines.
Sure. So, I mean, I usually will look and see what is getting the most engagement and look at why, I suppose, and decide if I need to start implementing something that consistently is going to have good engagement like this, or try it again and see if I get the same engagement, and then go from there. I also, in this area at the bottom where it shows total opens versus unique opens and total clicks versus unique clicks, for some reason that really grabs my eyeballs when I'm looking at a send report, because it shows that if the total is bigger than the unique number, that means that people are coming back to it or forwarding it or clicking on it multiple times, which shows you, or shows me, that I can interpret that as people liking either the subject line or the content specifically that's within the email. And this is specifically helpful with newsletters and or things that have a lot of different content in it. That has helped me over the years figure out what type of content people are engaging with the most with certain audiences.
So well said. The other cool thing I think about this, and things that I highlighted at the beginning, is start at whatever cadence you can. If it's every quarter, that's better than nothing. Like, let's look at it on every quarter, and then if we can up that to every month, that would be wonderful. But I think this is also something, I hope I'm not putting any words in your mouth, Kayla, but I imagine in either future sessions or whatever, we might refer back to as a really good opportunity to pair with other elements of e-com to make sure we're each responding uniquely to our own audiences.
Agreed.
All got to go back to data. I feel so every time people ask a question, it depends, but it really does. And just real-time data is what it depends on. So the second dashboard that I do have on here, and I guess I'm breaking it and intentionally, I want to show you all this. I've had cases where folks have multiple filters set. Like, I'm not getting any data. My permissions must be off. It's not a permission thing. We all have access to the same stuff. It's that, no, there's no data. No College of Education, business unit emails have an athletics from name. That doesn't make sense. So make sure you're defaulting to that top all one to kind of get rid of that filter. And now we're seeing athletics stuff from all time. You will see throughout the wiki, there are some other tips. If you don't do it right now, there's screenshots throughout here that, well, filtering, while pretty straightforward, and we reference that as well. But if you want to subscribe to dashboards, that's a great way to remind yourself you have full control over what cadence that is. So again, make it once a month or something. It's not going to go to your inbox with the filters applied. It's going to be the entire dashboard. So it really is more just a reminder to go look and then apply those filters. The limitation is exactly what I just called out. So I will get this recording added to this wiki as well if you want to share it out with others. And otherwise, continue to navigate to these, look at your business unit and see what you can start doing with that data. And don't be shy about poking Kayla and asking for her insight on it. There's a learning curve to interpreting this data. And once you start doing it, it's going to become second nature. Monica Cutler, if anyone's familiar with her out at Denver, has been using these for a long time. And when we did this change, they broke, and she called me immediately and was like, I don't know when to send it. And I just kind of laughed at her. She was like, I guess I didn't used to use data. I just sent it whenever I was done. Yeah, but that's just a great evolution to see. Kayla, any closing comments? I know we are at 2, so I will let everyone go very shortly.
No, I guess just if people see things that are missing, if your folder or from name or whatever is missing, how do you want those requests to be given to you, Melanie?
Yes. So as always, as far as users not sending things directly to me, that will be sent via Kayla. So however you want to collect it from your users. If we could try to batch them like on a weekly basis, that would be great, but just submit a help ticket and I'll get them added.
Cool. Sounds good.
And exception to that, Nancy, I will go ahead and start looking at your human resources, and Kayla will let you know when that's complete. Thank you all so much for attending. We will continue to dive into these areas. Some great tips that Eric's throwing in there as well on opening up these reports, looking at email sends even more. So we'll be in touch. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mel.
Bye all.
Bye.